In a quiet corner of an animal shelter, a solitary cat named Bidu cried out mournfully, aching for the owner he had lost. His family, completely heartbroken, had left him there, unaware of the depths of his suffering. One evening, as Dr. João was examining Bidu, he noticed something strange about the cat's collar. Leaning in to read the tag again, his eyes widened. "My God," he whispered. He immediately called for his assistant, Anna, who came running. "What is it, doctor?" she asked, her gaze shifting between him and Bidu, who was cowering in the corner. "The woman who brought him in," he began. "Are you sure she said his last name was Silva? Because what I'm seeing here, it doesn't make any sense." Bidu had been inconsolable since arriving at the shelter. Letizia, the widow of his late owner, had brought him in, explaining that the cat now only answered to the name Francisco. Her family couldn't care for him, and with no other option, they left him with the promise to return if they ever could. With tears in her eyes, Anna had watched as João placed Bidu into a kennel. She could see the cat pressed against the back wall, meowing softly. Sadness in animals was not uncommon, but Bidu's sorrow seemed to run deeper than anything she had ever witnessed. Later, a strange feeling still nagging at him, João told Anna, "I need to see Bidu." He returned to the kennel where the cat was covering its face with its paws. Crouching down, João saw that the collar was still fastened securely around the cat's neck. "It's time to take this off," he murmured, reaching out his hand slowly. In an instant, Bidu let out a sharp cry, leaped back, and hissed. João froze, his hands raised in surprise. "Why won't you let me take your collar?" he asked gently. He had caught another glimpse of the tag, and a wave of confusion washed over him. He must have misread it, he thought. Yet something felt deeply wrong. He approached again, his voice calm. "Hey, Bidu. It's okay." He extended his hand, but the cat narrowed its eyes and with a swift hiss, scratched him. Realizing that force would get him nowhere, João retreated, frustrated but determined. He left the kennel, convinced Bidu wasn't just sad. He was protecting something. A few minutes later, João returned with a treat and a toy. "Let's try this again, little friend," he said, placing the treat near the entrance of the kennel and stepping back. Bidu hesitated, watching João carefully. Then, he crept forward, sniffed the offering, and accepted it. João remained still, a faint smile appearing as he recognized the small step forward. As Bidu savored the treat, João began telling him stories about his own pets, and slowly, the cat began to relax. Still wary, Bidu allowed João to use another treat to coax his head up just enough for the tag to become visible. João's heart hammered in his chest. "My God," he whispered again, realizing the name engraved on the metal was not what he expected at all. It was a revelation that changed everything. "Anna, come here, please," João called out urgently. Anna hurried over, sensing the tension in the air. "What happened, doctor?" she asked, her eyes darting between João and Bidu. Pointing to the collar, João explained, "What's written here is going to turn this whole thing upside down." He was trying to assemble a puzzle that only grew more complicated with each new detail. "Anna, do you have Leticia's full name? Are we certain the surname is Silva?" he asked, his mind racing with possibilities. Surprised, Anna replied, "I'll have to check the documents." "The name on this tag doesn't match," João insisted. Anna's eyebrows shot up. If it wasn't their name on the tag, then whose was it? She paused, understanding the implications. "I'll check right now," she said, hurrying away. João turned his attention back to the collar, trying to decipher the name on the worn metal. It looked like something scratched into an old notebook, faint and nearly illegible. Bidu kept moving, nudging for more treats and making it impossible to get a clear look. Frustration began to build. The collar seemed to hold the key to everything, but it refused to reveal its secret. A short while later, Anna returned with a file in her hands. Yes, the surname is Silva. Leticia Souza and Francisco Almeida Silva, she confirmed. João's head spun. If that was true, why didn't the name on the tag match? It was like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Nothing made sense. He looked at Bidu, who clutched the collar as if it were his most precious possession. Taking it now would only distress him more. With a sigh, João decided to leave it, carefully closing the kennel, his mind still churning with questions. Back at his desk, João spread out Bidu's records and began reviewing every detail, every clinic visit, every small note, hoping to find a clue that would reveal the truth. One thing stood out. Bidu had been a patient for 6 years, but he looked much older, perhaps 10 or even more. Where had he been before? Who had cared for him, and why was the name on the tag being hidden? The next logical step was to visit the Silva home. Perhaps there he would find the missing piece. Before leaving, João informed Anna, "I'm going out for a while. Let me know if anything happens." She nodded. In the car, he typed in Leticia's address, the mystery of the collar still plaguing him, his mind buzzing with theories. What if Bidu was part of something bigger? What if the name on the collar had been obscured on purpose? When he arrived at the Silva mansion, the immense house rose before him, its silence almost unnerving. He parked and got out, his heart pounding as he walked toward the heavy front door. After knocking firmly and waiting, the door creaked open, revealing a woman who was clearly not Leticia. "Hi. I'm here about Bidu, Leticia's cat. I really need to speak with her," João explained, hoping his request didn't sound too strange. The woman looked at him with some confusion. "Leticia isn't here right now, but maybe I can help." João hesitated for a moment. This wasn't what he expected, but he decided to take a chance. "Would you mind if I looked at some old family albums from about 6 years ago? I'm looking for something about Bidu," he asked. The woman, whose name was Mariana, blinked but didn't object. "It's a bit strange, but let's see what we can find," she said, opening the door for him to enter. As Mariana went upstairs to get the albums, João stood in the foyer, admiring the elegant details of the house. Every corner exuded history and wealth, but to him, it felt like it was guarding secrets. His eyes fixed on an oil portrait of Francisco Silva hanging on the wall. So lifelike it seemed the man's eyes were following him. Then, a photograph caught his attention. In it, Leticia and Francisco smiled warmly with Bidu nestled between them. The cat looked completely happy in their arms. Around his neck was the very same collar. João leaned in, trying to make out the tag, which appeared much clearer in the photo than it did in person. His heart quickened as he realized the name written there matched neither Leticia nor Francisco. The revelation left him even more confused. Who did Bidu really belong to? Before he could process it, he heard footsteps echoing down the hall. Mariana reappeared, clutching an album and looking at João with curiosity. "Why are you so interested in that photo?" she asked. João hesitated, debating whether to tell her the truth, but opted for sincerity. "I've become very invested in Bidu's story, especially after Francisco passed away," he admitted. Mariana's expression softened, a shadow of sadness crossing her face. "My father found Bidu after he was hit by a car. He was so frightened it took him a long time to calm down, she recalled, her voice thick with nostalgia. João listened intently. Why didn't Francisco take him to a veterinarian? He asked. He tried, but Bidu would panic near cars. He would just run and hide. It was easier to care for him at home, Mariana explained. He's been with us for 6 years, she added. João was taken aback. 6 years didn't align with what he had imagined about Bidu's past. As they flipped through the album, he noticed Bidu's collar in another old photograph. Has he always worn this collar? He asked. Mariana thought for a moment. Yes, he always has. João's curiosity grew. Do you remember if anyone cared for him before then? He pressed. Mariana shook her head. We never knew where he came from before my father found him. They continued through the album until one particular photo caught João's eye. It was an older image, and on the collar, now worn and scratched in reality, the name was perfectly legible. João's heart leaped. Can I take this photo? It might help me figure out what's going on, he asked. Mariana hesitated, but then nodded, trusting him. Back at the clinic, João placed the photo on the counter in front of Ana. Look at this, he said, pointing to the image. Carla Lima. A quick internet search confirmed that a woman with that name lived in a nearby town, and the timeline made sense. João's heart raced as he dialed her number. I think I may have found your missing cat, he explained carefully, his voice firm but laced with uncertainty, unsure how she would react. On the other end of the line, Carla was silent, trying to process his words. Her heart pounded in her chest as she listened, searching for any sign of a mistake. You think you found Bidu? She finally whispered, her voice faint. I believe so, João replied. You can come to the clinic and see for yourself. Still stunned, Carla managed a small nod. Unable to find the right words, she knew there was only one answer. Yes, of course. The drive to the clinic was surreal for Carla. Memories of the day she lost Bidu flooded her mind. The countless posters she'd put up. The ache that never truly disappeared. She had tried to move on, to accept that he was gone. But now, there was a glimmer of hope. When she arrived, João led her down a quiet corridor to the kennels. Her steps were slow and measured. The scent of antiseptic, mixed with the soft smell of animal fur, filled the air, grounding her in the present. Her heart accelerated as they stopped in front of a small enclosure. João gestured gently. He's in here. Inside, a gray cat was curled into a ball, his green eyes wary. At first, Bidu let out a sharp, defensive meow, the kind of sound Carla had heard so many times when he felt threatened. It was so familiar it took her breath away. João stepped aside, allowing Carla to approach. Bidu stopped meowing. His ears perked up, and his pupils dilated as he saw her face. Carla hesitated, a lump forming in her throat, a mixture of hope and fear. What if he doesn't recognize me? What if it's been too long? She thought. Slowly, she extended her hand, palm open, giving him the chance to come to her. Bidu sniffed her cautiously, his whiskers twitching. A long, silent moment passed between them, heavy with unspoken emotion, until suddenly the cat's demeanor changed. His tail gave a slight twitch, and a deep purr rumbled from his chest. Carla barely had time to react before Bidu moved forward, pressed his forehead against her hand, and began to rub against her affectionately. A sob escaped her as tears welled in her eyes. I lost him 6 years ago during a move, she managed to say through her tears. I looked everywhere, but he just vanished. Joao watched silently as she ran her fingers gently through Bidu's fur, her touch so delicate, it was as if she feared the moment might dissolve like a dream. The connection between them was undeniable, but as the warmth of the reunion filled the room, the sound of footsteps shattered the spell. Anna, his assistant, appeared at the door, a tense expression on her face. Joao, she murmured hesitantly, Leticia is here. Turning to her, Joao frowned. Anna nodded, glancing between him and Carla, clearly worried. Joao took a deep breath, gave Carla a brief, reassuring look, and said, I'll be right back, before heading to the lobby. There, near the reception desk, stood Leticia, her hands clenched, her face a mask of grief and uncertainty. For a moment, silence hung between them. I heard you found a cat, Leticia said, her voice steady but fragile. Joao nodded. Yes, we did. Leticia swallowed hard. Is it Bidu? Carla, who had followed Joao out, stepped forward. Their eyes met in a quiet moment of understanding. The conversation that followed was difficult at first. Both women carried their own pain and their own truth. Carla spoke of the anguish of losing Bidu, of the months and years she had spent searching, never able to accept that he was gone forever. Leticia listened, her hands tightening on the strap of her purse. Then, in a soft, quiet voice, she shared her story. How she and her late husband had found Bidu wandering the streets, how they had nursed him back to health, and how, little by little, he became an irreplaceable part of their family. As they talked, the tension between them slowly melted away. There was no blame, no anger, only a shared love for the very same cat. Their stories intertwined in an unexpected way, building a bridge of understanding. After a long pause, Leticia sighed softly. I suppose he's always had two families, hasn't he? Carla blinked, surprised, and then she nodded slowly. Yes, I suppose he has. After much thought, they came to a decision that, while unexpected, felt undeniably right. Bidu would have two homes, two families, and all the love he had ever known. Joao watched as they reached this agreement, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. Bidu's journey was complete. Sometimes, love isn't about choosing, but about sharing. Did you enjoy this story? Do you agree with their decision to share the love for Bidu? Leave your comment below, and if you liked it, please like the story. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day.